Your heart is alive, it's pumping blood.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the hashtag I Made My Mark podcast. Today on the show we have a very special guest and close friend of mine, Emily Rose. So Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Emily, to get us started, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am from Virginia Beach, go 757, and of course I love the beach, and I chose to go to JMU at the very last second of my senior year, and I'm just so glad because it has made me a completely new person, and I have just opened my eyes to so many new things. But a little bit more about me is I love hanging out with friends. I am a huge extrovert and just thrive off of people, and I love to just laugh and joke around. And yeah, I love camping. That's one of my fun little hobbies. I asked for a tent one year for Christmas.
Did you get it?
So yeah, that's just a little bit. I did. My sweet grandparents gave it to me.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about like JMU being like your last minute decision senior year. So when did you actually decide that you were going to come to JMU?
I decided that I was going to come whenever, I think it was in March of my senior year, but I decided that I was going to come to JMU on the day before decisions were due. And I was between JMU and Virginia Tech. And I actually grew up a Hokie, like baby pictures of me in Hokie clothes. And my grandparents have lived in Blacksburg all of their life. And so I was just very used to the Hokie scene. And I made so many pros and cons lists. It was actually incredible. But I knew that Virginia Tech felt normal to me, but I just kept, like, I would tell myself, okay, I'm going to go to Virginia Tech. I'm going to go to Virginia Tech. And then I would think about how I wasn't going to JMU anymore and just get so disappointed and upset. And I said, Emily, if you keep feeling this way, like over and over, just go to JMU. And I did it. And I am so thankful I chose to be in Harrisonburg and a Duke.
That's awesome. That's a really cool story.
Yeah, thanks.
For me, I was in the same boat. Now, not like I hadn't grown up like a Hokie. Like I didn't have like baby pictures and tech gear and everything, but those were my two colleges that I was down to. And I think it just speaks to how similar like the environments are, but I am 100% on board with you. Like I couldn't have pictured myself at a better school for me.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, when you go on campus in the springtime and all of those tulips are there, it just gets you. You're like, wow, this place is incredible.
Specifically the tulips, right?
Yeah.
All right, so moving on a little bit, what organizations have you made your mark in around campus?
Oh my. So I definitely joined a couple different groups in the beginning of my college career, and I didn't necessarily like fit in and think that I wanted to continue pursuing those groups, even though they of course were great. But then I ended up kind of around junior year, I just had like this huge change of heart with like what direction and path I was going. And I joined a lot of things during my junior year in the fall semester. And I rushed and pledged, and I'm now a brother of Alpha Phi Omega. We are brothers, Dustin. And I became a member of Outriggers my sophomore year. And I do Camp Kesson. I'm a counselor and the unit leader there. And I think those are like my three main organizations that I'm a part of.
Nice. So, in Outriggers and throughout all of your organizations, did you take on any leadership roles in them?
I did. Um, so just recently, this past fall semester, I found out I was going to be a unit leader for Camp Kesem, which is essentially just a camp counselor who has the same responsibilities besides the fact that you're in charge of a specific group of counselors and all of their counselors' kids, and you just kind of make sure you're relaying information to them and making sure everybody's safe and all that good stuff. Things are definitely going to look a little bit different now because camp has so sadly been moved to a virtual camp. So I'm not sure what that's all going to look like yet. But I did that. And then also with Outriggers, I was the co-program assistant with Amanda Johnson. And essentially we just led that organization for an entire year.
That's awesome. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So you've been involved in quite a few different things around campus. I mean, I can see how they're all centered around like people service and like leadership, but you've definitely like diversified your interests.
Yes, I definitely, junior year, it was just crazy, but I was like, I need to try all these new things. I just didn't think I was taking as much of advantage as I had freshman and sophomore year. And so I was like, this is the time, like, let's do it, Emily. And so I tried a bunch of new things. Like I led an alternative weekend break, and that was so out of my comfort zone. But it was so much fun. It was like a group of 11 or 12 of us, and we didn't all know each other. And yeah, it was just so fun. So I definitely encourage anybody to just try it if you're at all interested.
That's awesome. All right, so kind of talking about JMU a little more. What is the
Yeah.
biggest myth that you think people have about JMU, and what is the reality on campus?
Okay, so I think a huge myth is that we're some crazy party school. And don't get me wrong, parties do happen, but you don't, for me, I think the biggest myth about the parties is that you have to go to these parties to be social and have that social life that everybody always talks about. And it's like the only option on the weekend and whatnot. And I just don't think that's the case at all. I think JMU, like with the organization UPB, offers so many alternatives. I know you and I both went to so many different late night breakfasts. And I think there's a lot of other options. And I would just say that if you're concerned about JMU in any way becoming a party school, like don't worry about it, because yes, the parties do happen, and it'll seem like, especially your freshman year, that that's what everybody's doing, but that is not true. And I had a bunch of fun game nights with my hallmates and roommate, and there's just so many cool things to do downtown in Harrisonburg. So yeah.
No, I 100% agree, and I couldn't have said it better. And whenever it's funny because that stigma isn't necessarily with the people who are coming to JMU now, but more so with the older people. And I don't mean like the 40s and 50-year-olds now. It's like with the young adults, like late 20s, 30s. Like every single time I tell them that I go to JMU, they're like, "Oh, so you party all the time?" Or like, "Oh, so now I know what your college consisted of." And I feel like it's just it may have been like that in the past, but that's just not what JMU is now.
Yes, I completely agree. So many employers would be like, oh, like, where are you in school? What are you doing? And same thing. They're like, oh, JMU, but it's not. JMU is so much more than that.
And I love that you plugged everything else that you can do because my freshman year, I didn't really I didn't really party all that much. And I went to the late night breakfast and I just enjoyed like getting to meet new people who would be my friends for the next 4 years, not in a party
Yeah,
environment.
yes, absolutely. And I I don't think real relationships come out from this partying scene. That is like, you're exactly right. Going to other events and just being able to genuinely meet people, I think is so important, and that's what actually produces real relationships.
I 100% agree. So tell me, now that we're at our final chapter, I guess, of JMU, a very new chapter. But tell me what your
Yeah.
next steps are after graduation and how you will take JMU into this next chapter of your life.
So my major is very cool, but we don't technically graduate in May. We technically graduate in August. And so if we were still having graduation in May, I would have still been able to walk. But we have an internship that we have to complete over the summer, which kind of, it just helps you culminate all of the learning and knowledge and make you apply what you've just experienced in all of the different courses into an internship right away. And they hope that it can kind of help lead us into like a job and whatnot. So I'm still looking around for internships, but things have gotten really difficult, of course, with the virus. And so for now, I'll be in like a little virtual simulation. So I'm probably just like going to keep looking for real jobs for right now. But then after my internship is over this summer, I am really interested in doing like a fellowship program that's Christian based, and just being able to live in a community like that and have a job and get to just live in a house with a bunch of people. And I think that the way I'll take JMU into this next chapter of my life is just like the values they kind of have instilled upon us, and how much like Duke's hold doors. When I do that at home, I remind myself how weird it is, and just little things like that are what reminds me of JMU and reminds me that I don't want to just leave those things in Harrisonburg. Like, I do want them to stick with me the rest of my life.
Yeah, and I think you said it great. Like, JMU has made such an impact on me, and I am hearing on you too, and I have seen how much of an impact it has had on you. But it's the small things. Like, it's not like monumental changes that have happened in our life, and like it was like one pivotal point. No, it's just like the small ways that we've changed over these past 4 years, and it's been so fun. I'll say growing along with you and like seeing us become even better people.
Yes, 100%.
So I know you mentioned it a little bit, but the situation that we're living in, classes being moved online, it being a little harder for you to find an internship. So like, how are you coping with everything due to this current situation that we're living in?
It definitely has not been the easiest by any means, because I love Jamie with my whole heart, and I always said, like, if I could somehow have a fifth year here and accidentally not graduate or whatever, I would take it in a heartbeat, because this campus and community just means so much to me. I think something that for me has been really helpful to cope with is just making a routine for myself and writing a to-do list. I think that has been super helpful. And also just trying to stay on such a, like, the regular schedule that I would have been on while I'm in Virginia Beach, because it's so easy to just sleep in however late you want, or not necessarily do your homework during the day, where I used to be really diligent about it before. And so just things like that, I'm trying to just stick to what I was experiencing and doing up in Harrisonburg the best I can.
And that's super.
How have you been?
How have I been?
Yeah.
Probably not the opposite of you, but I'm not always the most disciplined person, and it sounds like what you're doing takes a lot of discipline. So, what typically happens with me is, with schoolwork at least, if I'm feeling really motivated that day, I'll get up and I'll get it all done, and I'll have the rest of the day to myself. But typically Dustin procrastinates and waits till the last minute to do stuff. So I found myself in situations where I'm just on my computer at like 10, and then I remember that I have something due at midnight, so I have to like crank it up because none of my classes have like virtual online meetings. Like all of them are just like assignments that I have to do, so it's not even like I have to be present in class. And so I think that's what's kind of made it a little harder to like remember that I'm still like a full-time student.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. I said I'm trying to stick to a routine, but it doesn't always happen. So I agree with you on some still late nights where you're like, what the heck? I didn't do anything all day. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'll be honest, Netflix has become a fast friend of mine. I think I've already finished like 3 series.
That is so funny. What are you watching?
I watched Ozark. I watched Married at First Sight. Um, I watched a few other things a little before that, but Ozark is 3 seasons, Married at First Sight is one, and I've already like
That's incredible.
so that's how I am.
Wow.
That's funny. All right, moving on from Dustin's laziness. Um, if you could give younger Emily a piece of advice earlier on in your college career, what would it be and why?
Whew, so many things. Let me tell you. I definitely like to preface. I am glad I got to learn as many lessons as I did, but there's also some things where I'm like, gosh, if I could just tell myself this for sure. And one time when I was confused on why I was just doing so poorly in my major classes, towards the end of freshman year, I just remembered being so upset because I really didn't think it was okay to change my major, despite how many times professors and advisors over and over have said, it's okay, it's normal to change your major. A lot of people do it like 3 or 4 times and whatnot. And I was like, okay, thank you for, that information, but I just don't think that's going to be me. And it was. And so I would just say, like, it's okay to change your major, but also my dad told me this phrase that has stuck with me ever since, and it was in regards to changing my major at the time. But he said, just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean you have to do it too. And I have definitely applied that to more than just my major change, but that is definitely something that I would have liked to have told myself before.
That honestly, that is such an amazing phrase that applies to not only just like time at JMU, but that will extend with you for the rest of your life.
Yes, absolutely. I know, it's crazy because I've never forgotten that specific conversation we had.
That's crazy. And I would argue to say that more, I don't know the exact statistic of it because I don't like work for the registrar or anything like that, but I would say a lot of college students change their major.
For sure.
And
like high school definitely prepares you, but you have no idea what you're doing for the most part. And so it's just like you have to just try things out and see how it goes.
exactly. And I was having a conversation with my mom yesterday, and we were just talking about the future and future jobs and how college has prepared me and everything like that. But I also brought it up to her, and this is like a little bit of the psych major coming out in me, but your like frontal lobe doesn't stop developing until you're 26, and that's the lobe that like, deals with all of your decision making and everything. So it's kind of crazy to think that when you're 18 or 19 or 20 and you're in college, you have to make this decision about your major that will impact your career for the most part for the rest of your life.
Yep. It doesn't always make sense. That is for sure. And I mean, that's why a lot of people, they end up having majors in college that they like, and then they graduate and they do something completely different, which makes sense because we're discovering new things about ourselves
Yeah.
all the time.
And I think your junior year speaks to this perfectly. Like, you found all these different passions, you got involved, and you were just still growing as a student junior year, even into senior year. Like, it's not like your first year at JME, you came in and you were like, I want to do these three organizations, I want to get involved in this, and this is going to be my major, and I can't wait to graduate in 4 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, that brings up like another point of something that I wish I could have told myself and given that advice to my young Emily self, is that if you join something and you're not necessarily like interested in it anymore, but you feel like an obligation, don't feel an obligation. Like, obviously, kind of back out of the organization in the proper ways and handle it with maturity and respect, but you do not have to stay in anything that you don't want to be a part of. And I think that was definitely a huge lesson that I learned freshman and sophomore year, which then made me join all of these new incredible organizations my junior year. But just because you started something does not mean you have to finish in that same organization. Like, especially when your values are changing, if your values don't align with an organization, like, get out. It's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's just different, you know? So
Yeah.
that was one other thing.
No, you make an amazing point, because I think a lot of the times people get involved in organizations and they pay dues, and they just feel like because they joined this organization, and like whether it was a recruitment process or whether it was just like an application, like they put in the work to be in the organization, and they feel like they're trapped sometimes. And I feel like me and you both have the experience to say, like, if you aren't enjoying what you're doing, there's nothing in the Constitution, there's nothing in the bylaws, there's no rule at JMU under student activities and involvement that say that you have to stay in that organization. Like, people leave sports teams, people leave clubs, people leave fraternities and sororities because they just realized that it wasn't their home. And it's nothing against the organization, it's just it's not for them, like you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm so glad you made that point, because I think a lot of people will take a lot away from that.
Oh, okay.
So, one last question, and arguably the hardest question that you'll be asked. So, what do you think is the most important mark that you have made on campus, and what do you think your legacy will be?
Hmm. Um, that is a very tough question. Um, I hope that the most important thing that I did while I was at JMU is just make others feel known and heard and just loved. I think the phrase of, like, you don't know what's going on with the inside of somebody is very applicable at all times and walks of life. And like, if it's just a simple saying hello to somebody that you may have had a class with one semester, or just saying like, how are you? Like, even from like the littlest things to like making sure you reach out to a person because they've been going through a hard time, and just checking in on them and seeing if you can support them in any way. I just hope that people remember me as someone who is just so easily able to just love others, and just knowing that they have my full support always, because once a Duke, always a Duke. Am I right, Dustin?
You are right, Emily. And I will honestly say, from my experience with you on campus and even our experience with each other in high school, you have always been someone I've looked up to for the fact that you just love others so effortlessly and you make people feel so comfortable. Like, I can honestly say that my time at JMU would be different without you.
Oh, that was so sweet. I feel the exact same way, though. Like, you are just incredible, and I know how many people that you've impacted on campus, and you were my favorite person to see at late night breakfast. And I'm so glad that our friendship developed in high school. And then we just happened to also be coming to the same school for college. But you are just an incredible human.
So are you, and I cannot wait. That's why I'm glad that I'll still be on campus for 2 more years in grad school, just because it'll be so cool seeing the legacy that you and all the other seniors that I've become close with like leave. Like you won't necessarily be able to see what happens after you graduate and after you're done at JMU, but it'll be so fun for me to watch all these people that you've mentored and all of these people that you've loved and supported just grow and become the phenomenal leaders because of your support.
Dang, yeah, that really will be cool. Yeah, I think there's a Bible verse that talks about like planting the seed and it's okay. Like if you don't see it bloom, but just knowing that like you've planted the seed is what's the most important. And I feel like you definitely embody that. And then that's so cool that you even get to see that much more growth.
Yeah. All right. So, do you have any more last minute nuggets of wisdom, piece of advice for our listeners?
You know, I don't think so. I've done a lot of talking. You've done a lot of great listening.
But I think that a lot of people will get a lot out of this podcast.
Well, I'm glad. I've definitely gone through the hurdles and I've made plenty of mistakes. But with all of those mistakes, I've learned so much about myself and who I am continuing to become every single day.
That's awesome. And I know that you've made an impact on JMU, on me, and on so many other people. So, Emily, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been a blast having you. And I just can't wait to see what your future holds for you and everything that you'll do in life.
Thank you, Dustin. Thanks for having me. Thanks for asking me all of these great questions. You're the best.
You're the best. All right, y'all. We'll see you next episode. And this is all we got for you. So see you next time.
Leave something to remember.